Hi, welcome. I'm Lorelai with Namasturm Yoga. This is going to be another level 1 yoga practice. So let's come to the mat. So first things first, you want to make sure you have a yoga mat. The yoga mat is going to keep us kind of grounded. It gives us something for a little cushion, a little padding, but also provides some traction. So I think if you've been practicing, you certainly probably have a yoga mat. If yoga is relatively new to you, and because I do suggest that this class could be for beginners, that may be you, I do encourage you to use a mat as opposed to just like an exercise mat or a towel. An actual yoga mat supplies just some of the extra. It has properties that are useful to the practice, let's just say. They're pretty cheap, so you shouldn't have to spend a lot of money to find a yoga mat. And then we're just gonna sit cross-legged on it for right now. If you have a hard time sitting cross-legged, if for some reason, like when you do that, your knees point up and your back rounds and you just, you feel like you're working really hard to get yourself up, sit up on something. So this is a yoga block, but I know not everyone has a yoga block in their home. So you could also use like a book or a folded up edge of a blanket or something. And then you would just put your sit bones right here on that block. And that's gonna help to lean you forward a little bit more so it's easier to keep your shoulders over your hips. And it also might allow the knees to drop down a little bit because now your feet are a little bit lower than your hips. So the hips are on the block, the feet are not. This is an option if you feel like you could use it. Please take a moment to just adjust yourself so that you're set up right. And then we're just gonna take the hands to the knees, close your eyes, and give yourself a moment to prepare for this morning's practice. And I know you don't know exactly what's coming, but the preparation is just to adjust your mindset so that for the next hour or so, anything that's going on with the rest of the day or anything that went on with you yesterday is out of your mind, right? That's, relatively speaking, right? We can't just dissolve thoughts from our mind, but we can move our focus so that we're thinking more about what's going on now as opposed to what's going on earlier or later. So see if you can start to focus on your breath. That is the way that yoga encourages us to keep focus. There are other things we can pay attention to as well. Maybe notice your hands resting on your knees, the feeling, just the sensation. Maybe feel your hips or sit bones as they rest on your mat or that block that you're sitting on or the book you're sitting on. So anything that we can focus on that is immediate and present in the physical world will help to keep us anchored in our present moment. And it sounds superficial, but it actually is just trying to be in touch with our tangible reality. And then if you've had your eyes closed, you can go ahead and open them here. We're just gonna take the shoulders back and down a couple of times, warming them up, starting to just bring a little bit of movement to the body. And then let's take the arms out and up, reach them for the ceiling. Interlace your fingers and see if you can turn your palms upward and press your palms to the ceiling. You might feel like a lot of pinch or tension or resistance in the shoulders, and those elbows may not straighten, but if you can straighten them, go ahead and do it. So that's the direction we're going. And we're usually in yoga working in a direction, but where we actually end up isn't of as much importance. So if you're straightening your elbows, but they don't get actually straight, it's okay. See if you can now also relax your shoulders down away from the ears. So the hands are pressing up, but the shoulders are dropping down. And then we're gonna let go of that clasp. Take your left hand over to your right knee, take the right hand back behind you, and then just turn over your right shoulder. As gently as you can. Don't force it. Don't try to really push or make something happen. We're really just letting our body we're we're checking in, let's just say, seeing how things feel here. Go as far as you can, and then just breathe. And we'll just go to the other side. So take your right hand to your left knee. Your left fingers are behind you, but we're not like leaning into the backhand. The backhand isn't taking weight. It's helping to anchor us. And actually we can think of pushing those fingers down so that we keep ourselves a little bit upright. Turn over your left shoulder. You can turn and look with your head too, but that's not the greatest priority. We're mostly twisting like from the navel to the neck. And come on back to center. And then let's uncross the legs and we're gonna come to a tabletop position. This is very simple. Set up the shoulders over the wrists and the hips over the knees. You can extend the toes behind you. And then we're gonna move our spine. So head and tail are gonna lift up, so your head and your tailbone, but you're gonna drop your belly down and the chest between the shoulders. Look forward, this is cow pose, and then switch it all around. So now tuck your tailbone like you're trying to bring it underneath you. Let your head drop down, but lift up the back of the body. Inhale, cow pose. We're gonna try to follow the breath here, connecting to breath. Exhale, tuck the tail, arch the spine, head comes down. Cat pose. Inhale, cow. And if you've been practicing yoga, this is going to be a very familiar sequence, so you don't have to go any slower than your breath. Try to match up the movement of the body to the rhythm of your breath. And I encourage you to actually try to work with a more rhythmic breathing pattern here. In life, we don't breathe rhythmically. We inhale when we need to, we exhale when we need to, but here in yoga, we can actually try to control the breath a little. So we're noticing it, but we're also affecting it. And we're gonna add on a little here. So as we start to go to cat pose this next time, let's also lengthen out the arms and try to move your hips to your heels. And this is child's pose. And then on an inhale, come back up, come back to cow pose. Exhale. Round the spine, drop your hips to your heels, a little child's pose. So the movement is just a little broader here. Inhale, head and tail lift. Exhale, round the back and drop your hips to your heels. One more time, we're gonna inhale to cow, and then we're gonna drop the hips to the heels, coming all the way to a child's pose, and we're gonna stay. So if you want to take your knees a little wider here, sometimes that's nice because it gives space between your legs for your belly to expand as you drop down. Take the arms out, let your forehead come to the floor and relax your forearms on the ground. Breathe. Let's take a little twist. So this is a little thread the needle twist. We're gonna lift up just a little bit so our arms come off the ground, and we're gonna thread the left arm underneath the right one. So imagine like the back of the hand is sliding along the mat and then maybe even off the mat until slowly you start to pull your whole body down. So we're not gonna pull our head through, but we're gonna drop our shoulder and our head to the floor and just release. Now your right hand, I'm going to give you a couple options. So you can just keep it where it is, that's fine. If you want to, you could bring it in a little closer, set it up so your elbow is right over your wrist and push down. And that's going to move the right shoulder up a little bit more. So breathing here. If that doesn't feel right, you can keep the arm extended. And now with the right hand, if you're pushing down with it, come back up. Come through center, and we're gonna go the other way. So again, the arms are out ahead of you, but we wanna have a little space under that left arm to slide the right hand. So just sliding it through, let it keep sliding until it gets about as far as it can get, and then let your head and shoulder come to the mat. The left arm can stay out, or plant your palm, elbow over wrist, push down, and that's gonna help lift your left shoulder a little bit. And then push down even more, come on up, and we're gonna come back to tabletop. So setting up your shoulders over your wrists and your hips over the knees. Let's go ahead and tuck the toes underneath and lift the knees just about a couple inches off the ground. So we still look like we're in a tabletop, but it does not feel like that because it is a lot more work. We are engaging through the core. So you may not even be trying, but it's what's gonna happen to keep you in this position. Your navel starts to pull in towards your spine, and all of your core muscles, which are the ones in your abdominal area, are starting to help stabilize you. From here, let's keep the shoulders where they are, keep the hips where they are, but step the feet behind us one at a time so we're in plank pose. Push through the heels, reach through the head. This is some work, yeah? We want it to be a little bit of work. If it's too much work, take your knees back to the floor, but keep a little bit of an angle. So tabletop, we have the knees right under the hips. Where we want to be now is having the knees kind of away so that there's an angle from the shoulders to the knees. Otherwise, we've got shoulders to hips and then to heels. And then let's all take knees down, and we're going to lower our chest between the hands. As you do this, keep your elbows over your wrists as you begin to bend the elbows. So see if you can go down really slow. It's kind of like going through a push-up, but we're just going down. We're not going to push back up right now. And then take your elbows out in front of you, right underneath the shoulders, heart forward. Come up. This is Sphinx pose. So we could relax and just kind of collapse down, and that's okay, right? But we can make this a little bit more active by pushing the arms down so that we come up. So anytime we push down, usually that's kind of how we get something else to move up. So a little push down is going to help our chest to lift up. And then the other thing we can do, and this is a little more subtle, is we can imagine we're pulling our elbows back towards our hips. Because this mat is kind of sticky, the arms are going to actually grip the mat and they're not going to move. But what happens is because we're trying to pull the elbows back, we can slightly move our chest forward. It's subtle, it's small, but see if you can find it. The neck is relaxed, so we're not dropping the head completely, but we're also not craning the head back. So something nice and easy. You should be able to turn your head from side to side. Now from here, with the fingers spread wide, press the hands down and see if you can float up off your elbows and come up a little higher. If that's too much, put them back down. Sphinx pose, or this is like a seal pose. It's a little back bend, so we're getting some, back bend means also stretch for the front. So let yourself now lower down. Let's take the arms by the sides and then just take your forehead to the floor, or you can turn to one ear if you want to. And next, we're gonna take a little locust pose. So we're gonna keep the arms along the sides. We're gonna maybe bring the legs together a little bit and point the toes back behind, and then we're just gonna lift everything up, the upper body, the lower body. See if you can just come a little bit up. So you're like a rocker, right? Like the bottom of a rocking chair. See if you can keep some of this lift. Bend your elbows, bring the hands to the floor next to your chest, and we're just gonna rock to our feet and off our upper body to come to Cobra pose. Now, if you don't want to take much weight into your hands, that's okay, but you might take a little bit if that's accessible to you. Now, notice if your shoulders tend to hunch forward, and instead move them back so the shoulder blades are on your back, and the same sense of traction if you want to, like pulling the palms back towards your hips so that the chest moves forward. Tons of space between the ears and shoulders, and the elbows, although they're kind of straight, they're not like locked out fully straight here. There's still a little softness. From here, let's tuck the toes under, come to your knees, move your hips up, and then we're gonna lift the knees and hips all the way up to downward facing dog. Once you get to down dog, this is a nice inverted V. Root the hands down. So again, we're using the mat. We're pressing the hands forward and down on the mat to help the hips move up and back. So it's traction and tension. It's pushing down to lift up. Sometimes you'll hear root to rise, which is sort of the idea of you're rooting your hands down so your hips can rise up. Reach the heart, and then take a little time working the legs here. This might feel like a lot on your wrists, especially if you are newer to yoga. The arms should be at an angle though, so it's more work to have your shoulders right over your wrists. That's harder on your wrists. But if we can really move the chest back and angle the arms, it's a little less work, but it may not feel super familiar. Let's walk the feet now forward, all the way to the front of the mat. We are going to get off these hands because we've spent some time on them. Have your feet about hip distance. Let the upper body hang and dangle and maybe sway a little from side to side. If your hands hit the ground, you can even grab your elbows so that they don't sway. And then let's roll up to standing. So we're going to come all the way up to the top of the mat. This is a level 1 practice, so I'm going to try to give a lot of descriptions and explanations. But level 1 is a little different for everyone. So we are going to go through some more challenging poses and some sequences. Do the best you can. Work at your own personal level. If something's too much for you, you can take a break, right? It's your practice. You're in your home. Find a way to make things feel the way that your body wants them to feel. So no pain, right? We're not trying to cause any pain in our bodies here. Challenge may be okay. Let's go ahead and step all the way to the top of the mat, and let's take the big toes to touch. The heels are going to stay slightly apart, and this is just a parallel foot position. So our feet are not, they're not bricks, right? They're narrower at the heel than they are across the balls of our feet. So if our toes touch, the heels shouldn't if they're really parallel. Let's take palms together in front of the heart and just gently press them. Keep your shoulders a little soft, so away from the ears. Gaze straight forward. And once again, notice your breath. We're going to try to follow the breath. And we can work with an ujjayi breath, which involves the slight narrowing of the back of the throat. So if that's familiar to you, you can introduce that here. Now on an inhale, we're just going to take the arms out and up. So reach on up. As you exhale, like a nice swan dive, lead with the chest, forward fold over your legs. Now bring your fingertips to your shins, push in, lengthen your arms and flatten out the back, reaching your head away from the tail. Then exhale, fold back over the legs, and the knees might be bent here. It's okay if they are. Inhale, rise up, reverse the swan dive, come all the way up. Exhale, palms together in front of the heart. Inhale, let's do that again. Reach the arms out and up. Exhale, forward fold over the legs. Inhale, take a flat back half lift. Exhale, forward fold down. Press the feet, inhale. Reverse swan dive up. Exhale, palms together in front of the heart. Inhale, reach the arms out and up. Exhale, take a long forward fold over the legs. Fingers to shins, inhale, take a half lift. Reach the head away from the tail. Now we're going to bend the knees enough so that we can get the hands to the floor. So they might bend a lot. Think about continuing to reach your head away from the tail so that the spine is nice and long. And then we're going to step the feet one at a time all the way to the back of the mat so we're right in plank. And the idea is the neck is still long from that half lift pose we did. From here, take the knees to the ground, lower the chest slowly down between the hands. So bend the elbows to lower the chest. Try not to drop the hips first. Inhale, roll on up, shoulders away from the ears, cobra pose. Exhale, tuck your toes, maybe come to the knees. And if you want to stay in an easier version of down dog, you can keep your knees on the floor and just lengthen the arms and move the hips back, let the neck release. If you're okay with down dog, then the knees are up off the ground. And take a few breaths here in downward facing dog. This is a sun salutation A, so we're going through really slowly this first time, but then we're going to start to flow with the breath. Hands press down, hips lift up. So remember that sense of pushing down to lift up and lengthen. Breathe here. Steady, even breath. Inhale, now look to the front of the mat as you exhale, step, walk, or hop the feet forward. You can hop them if you like to, but that's a little more vigorous. If you're doing it, do it light. Feet come to, big toes come to touch. Root the fingers into the shins. Inhale, take a half lift, flat back. Exhale, fold down over the legs, and then push the feet into the floor. So again, we're rooting down with the feet to rise up with the upper body. Come up nice and strong. And then palms together in front of the heart. And let's go with the pace of the breath. So before we start to move here, maybe close your eyes and really tune into your breath. Try to set a rhythm, something you can maintain. If you're working with your jai, it's a slight narrowing of the back of the throat so you can hear the rushing sound of the breath. And then we're going to follow that in. Open the eyes. Inhale, reach the arms out and up. Exhale, forward fold over the legs. Inhale, half lift, flat back. Exhale, bend the knees, plant the palms, and step the feet back and lower so that all happens on an exhale. Inhale, rise to cobra. Exhale, lift to downward facing dog, moving the chest back to the thighs. And then we usually hold in down dog for a few breaths before we finish the sequence. So you can hold here. You could do the knees on the floor version, which is called like puppy dog pose, or you could even come all the way back to your heels and take child's pose here. Down dog is designed to be a resting pose, but I understand that it does not feel that way for you at first. When I first started taking yoga, that down dog, it was some hard work. Your body eventually learns how to use the alignment to help you so it doesn't feel like as much work. But there is also some, muscle building that has to happen to help support this pose. If you feel like it's tiring you out, take your knees to the floor. Now inhale, look to the front of the mat. Exhale, step, walk, or again, if you like, you can bend the knees and lightly hop to the front. Inhale, take a flat back half lift. Exhale, fold down deep, and then root the feet into the floor. Come on up. Palms together in front of the heart. Let's do that 2 more times, following the pace of your breath. Inhale. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, lift halfway up. Exhale, step to plank and lower down all the way to your belly, but try to let everything come down together. You can take knees down first. Inhale, come on up, cobra. Exhale, downward facing dog. And then let's take about 3 breaths here, so maybe actually count them. Make sure your neck is relaxed. The head can just hang in this pose. And then when you're ready, take an inhale to look forward between the hands. Exhale, bend the knees and step or lightly hop forward. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold down. Press the feet. Inhale, reverse swan dive. And exhale, palms together in front of the heart. 1 more. Inhale. Exhale, fold. Inhale, lift halfway. Exhale, high plank to low plank. And again, take the knees down if you need to, but some of you might be working without the knees down. Inhale, cobra. Exhale, downward facing dog. Take some breaths here. So this is a sequence that it can be a little vigorous. We're working our muscles. It's a bit of a warm-up, so we're working our whole body together. So you might start to feel your limbs warming up a little bit. Maybe you feel like your breath is getting a little deeper. Maybe you feel like your heart rate has gone up a little bit. It shouldn't be dramatic, but we are working a little more here. Inhale, look to the front of the mat. As you exhale, bend the knees and step or lightly hop forward. Inhale, take that half lift. Exhale, fold. And then reverse swan dive. Come all the way up to standing and palms together in front of the heart. Okay, let's come to chair pose. So we're gonna stay at the top of the mat. Chair pose, kind of what it sounds like. So imagine you're just gonna sit back into a chair. That's it, right? So your hips go back. The weight should be on your heels. We don't actually have a chair there to sit in, so we have to use the muscles of the legs to hold us here. We can take the arms up alongside the ears. So this isn't a big hips back. Like we wouldn't probably actually sit in a chair like this with our head really forward. If we're sitting in a chair, Our shoulders are kind of over the hips, so there's going to be a little lean, but not too dramatic. Take one more inhale here, and then exhale, fold the legs. I always feel like a sense of relief straightening the legs after bending them like that. So see if that happens for you too. Let's keep the fingers on the floor, and we're just going to step, let's actually keep the right foot forward. We're going to step the left foot to the back of the mat. Keep your right knee right above your ankle. This is really good for your joint to have a bone to support it. So if you stepped your foot only a little bit back and then we try to lunge, sometimes that knee goes ahead of the ankle and that's much harder on your knee joint. So use your whole mat here. We've got a long mat. We want to make sure we're using it. And then reach the head away from the back heel. So imagine a really long stretch. Push the heel back, reach the head forward. The back knee is lifted and straight. Let's take the left palm to the floor, and it should line up with the right foot, and then take the right arm up for a nice twist. If you have a hard time planting that left palm firmly, again, you could put your hand on a book or a block. If you had something that you sat on at the very beginning of class, use the same thing. Now turn back to the floor, plant both palms. Now we're going to try to keep our back legs straight and basically our hips pretty level. We're going to step the right foot to meet the back, and once again, we're in plank. And then we can take the same sequence that we've been taking, lowering down. Now I'm going through Chaturanga Dandasana, so I'm not dropping my knees first. This is a lot more work, but you also want to make sure your hips are not the first thing to touch the floor. They should touch at about the same time your chest does. Inhale, coming up to your cobra. And then exhale, downward facing dog, and breathe. Again, we're resting here. Inhale, look forward to the front of your mat. As you exhale, bend the knees and step or lightly hop it up. Feet together. Inhale, take a half lift, flat back. Exhale, fold. Now we can go from here straight to chair pose by bending the knees. Right now, as we're folding, the hips are going to be back, but now as we come up, think about dropping your tailbone towards the ground, moving the weight towards your heels. As your heart comes up, let the arms come up as well. Chair pose. This is called Utkatasana. One more inhale, and then exhale. Take yourself back to the forward fold. Inhale, take a nice half lift, flat back, and then fingers to the floor. So bend your knees as much as you need to get the fingers to the floor. Let's step the right foot back. So we're going to do the other lunge. This time the left foot is staying forward. Same thing, knee over ankle. So we want to have that really good vertical shin to support the joint. Take a moment with both fingers, sets of fingers on the floor. Reach through the back heel, reach through the head. Straighten out that back knee. Now your lunge may be less deep, right? So your hips might be higher. It's okay if that's the case, but you're still trying to straighten up your back leg. And then plant the right palm down inside the left, and if you need to put that hand on something, that's okay. Take the left arm up and twist the other side. Turning back to the floor, root down both hands, strong back leg, and then step the left foot back to meet the right. Shoulders are over wrists. Again, we're in plank pose. If you want to lower through Chaturanga, your elbows bend, but they stay over your wrists. So basically what has to happen is the shoulders need to move forward. If that's too intense, make sure your knees are down first, and then lower your chest between your hands. Inhale, come to cobra pose, and exhale, downward facing dog, breathing. Okay, so from down dog, let's take the right leg up into the air. So we're gonna reach the leg off the floor, but let's try to keep looking at our toes and see that they're still aimed down toward the ground. So it's not just the foot that's doing that. So if the leg opens, we're just not trying to just turn the foot, but we wanna turn the whole leg to face the floor. See what you can do. Look forward between the hands, and we're gonna step that foot all the way up. So, if you get stuck here and the foot just like doesn't want to come further forward, use your right hand. See if you can bring your right hand to your foot and just slide it up. So we want it all the way at the front of the mat. We're going to come all the way up to a high lunge. So this is going to be a little bit of a balance challenge. It's not a lot of balance, but it is a little, and you might feel a little wobbly when you get up. So try to gaze at one point ahead of you, something that's not moving, something that can keep you kind of locked in, and then either bring your palms together in front of the heart or take your arms up alongside the ears. So notice the back heel is not on the floor. We're lunging into the front knee, but that knee is right over the ankle again. Straighten out the back leg for stability. We're going to change this to Warrior One. So go ahead just for a moment, bring your palms together in front of the heart so you've got a little more stability to transition. Step your left toes a little bit more to the left side of your mat. And this is because we're going to pivot the heel down. So now let yourself roll to the heel of that foot. Balance becomes a lot easier, but we're still lunging deep. This front quad might be screaming at you for a moment here. Take your hands to your hips. Think about moving your right hip back and your left hip forward. And this is squaring toward the front of the mat so that the hip bones are across from each other. The shoulders then stack over the hips. And now let's take the arms up. Maybe palms together, look up towards your thumbs. One more inhale here. And then we're going to take the hands to the ground and come out of this. See if you can just step to plank pose. And you have the option to take that vinyasa sequence here. So if you'd rather not, just go right to down dog. But if you'd like to, and again, this is a little more vigorous, so this is going to keep your practice a little warmer, a little more challenging. You lower, take your back bend, and then come to down dog. So that's optional. I really love vinyasa practice. I teach that way most often. But if that's not for you, skip those little transitions and just go straight to down dog, where we'll lift the left leg now. So same thing, second side, and look under your body. See if you can see those left toes. If they're turned to the side, try to rotate your whole leg, and that's going to help level out the hips. Just a little bit of, alignment work. Look forward, step that left foot forward. And again, if it doesn't get all the way forward in one try, use your left hand to move it. Again, we want to have the knee stacked on top of the ankle, so we've got a vertical shin bone supporting our knee joint. Float up. Find a gazing point to help with your balance. Reach through the back heel. Take your palms together or arms up. Breathing. Always breathing. Anytime we're holding a pose, it's also a chance to deepen the pose. So if you've got like if your lunge is not very deep at first, after a couple breaths, maybe it goes a little deeper. Don't force it, but be open to it. Now let's take the hands together in front of the heart. Just as easily as you can, step the right toes just a little to the right, not all the way to the end of your mat or off the mat. Pivot down on your right heel. Take your hands to your hips, and then rooting down into the outer edge of your back foot, try to square up your hips. So we want to move the right hip bone forward and the left back, because the legs are going to try to pull the hips in the other direction. Lunge into the front knee, press into the outer edge and heel of the back foot, and then you can take the arms up. Maybe palms together, look up. Keep lunging, stay with it. One more inhale. And then exhale, hands to the floor. And again, you can step to plank, take your vinyasa here, or if you'd rather, just go straight to downward facing dog. And breathe. Inhale, look ahead to the front of your mat. Exhale, bend the knees to step or lightly hop it forward. Inhale, take a half lift. Exhale, fold down deep. Let's come through chair pose again. So we're going to bend the knees and sink the hips. We're working a lot on our quads today. Take the arms up, but then go ahead and straighten the legs. Come to standing. Let's go ahead and take a wide stance here. So we're going to parallel the feet. So wide is going to be using not like, this is maybe, a third or a half of my mat. We want to use like 2/3 or 3/4 of the mat to do this. Feet are parallel and they are like, I think about a leg length apart. Press the feet down, lift the quads up. Let's just take a simple forward fold here. So starting with the hands at the waist, we're going to allow ourselves to start to fold. This is a wide-legged forward fold. Take fingers to the floor. Maybe the hands start to walk back between the feet and lean forward. So the tendency, I think, for many is the hips lean back. So the weight comes to the heels. Let's see if we can challenge that and lean more of the weight toward the balls of the feet so the heels feel really light. Let your head hang down heavy. Engage the legs. So your quadricep muscle, which that's that muscle right above your kneecap, that one can start to tone up, like activate that muscle there. And then take your hands to your waist, push the feet down, and float yourself on up. Let's pivot on the right heel. So we're going to turn the right toes forward. Keep both legs straight. We're going to move to triangle pose. So what happens for me when I start to turn that heel forward is somehow my left hip kind of wants to move forward too. Like we have this tendency in our bodies to skew to the diagonal, but I want to counter that a little bit. So I'm going to try to let my left hip move back so that the hips are lined up here. Now we're going to tuck the right, like this hip crease in, and then try to keep the sides of the body long. This hip is going to move back, but we don't want it to drop forward, and we don't want the chest to drop forward. We're trying to keep ourselves like in one plane. So, there's the image of like if you were between two sliding glass doors and you couldn't move ahead because you'd hit glass with your nose. You couldn't move back because you'd hit glass with the back of your head. So if that's useful for your imagination, you can take that. Take the right hand to the right ankle or shin, and then the top arm is going to go up. And again, we're between these panes of glass, so we can't move forward or back. We're sandwiched in there. Do the best you can. I know our bodies are not perfectly flat, but we're working in that direction. Maybe back of the hand moves to the inner shin, so you're not taking weight on your bottom hand, and then the top shoulder opens. Look up. Press the feet into the floor. Breathe. Okay, let's float on up. And we're just going to go to the other side. So we're going to keep it simple here. Pivot the right foot back around. So now feet are parallel again. And then pivot on the left foot. So the front heel lines up now with your back arch. That's the goal, so that everything's lined up to start. Try to line up your hips, tuck your left hip in, keep the sides of the body long, and then the hand can come to your ankle or shin. This is your left hand, or the back of the hand against the inner shin. Top arm straight up above the shoulder. Turn your head, look up towards the top thumb. Strong feet, long sides of the body. Breathe. And then root down, float back up again. Once again, let's parallel the feet and we're going to take another forward fold. So in this one, we're going to try to interlace the hands behind the back. If you can grab the hands, go for it. If those hands don't reach each other, and that's normal, you could put a towel or something between them that you can hold on to just so that they can keep together behind your back. Once again, feet are parallel. Push the feet down, lift the quads up. Shoulder blades together and down. Hopefully we can start to straighten out the arms. Now as you fold, lead with the chest, the heart, and start to make your way over. Some of you will find you can start to move your arms up and over. But keep your shoulders lifting away from your ears. So if you can imagine your shoulder blades being pulled onto your upper back, and it's not just imagining, you can actually do that with your muscles, right? But you have to kind of think about it because you can't see it. Lean forward and maybe let the arms move over. The legs are straight here. That doesn't mean they're going to be completely straight, but don't bend the knees just to get deeper or lower or closer to the ground. Keep leaning forward, and then to come up, push the feet down. Try to find those deep core muscles to help bring your torso upright. Come back up, and let's step back to the front of the mat. So I'm just going to switch to a different side on my mat, but you can work however you can be whatever and makes sense to you. Bring your big toes to touch, heels slightly apart, palms together. Let's inhale and come to chair pose. We're just going to flow a little more here. Exhale, fold over the legs. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, step back to plank and lower on down. Inhale, take a cobra or an up dog. Well, up dog would be where you float your thighs off the floor. So I didn't talk about that today, but some of you will know. Exhale, downward facing dog. Let's take the right leg into the air on one inhale. So take it just up for a moment. And then exhale, step it forward. We're going to come to warrior one again. So you're going to pivot your back heel down. And you can do this before you take your hands off the floor. So step your foot a little to the left, pivot your heel down. Front knee is over ankle. Come on up, square forward to warrior one. And now we're going to open to warrior two. But here's the thing, warrior two, we're going to try to open the hips, so we want to use the feet to help with that. So this left foot, which is slightly out to the left now, we're going to turn it open so that now the front heel and back arch line up. We have a very similar foot position as we did for triangle just a moment ago. This left hip, we draw it open, front knee stays over ankle, and then take the arms up for a moment, palms out, and then see if you can just slowly lower the hands to shoulder height, and then look out over your front fingertips. Breathe. This is warrior two. The front knee, we want it stacked directly above your ankle, but it sometimes tends to wobble in. So you can look, you should be able to see your big toe just inside your front knee. Turn your front palm up so you're still looking at your front fingers. Let's take the back hand to the back leg for a reverse warrior. Keep lunging as you reach up and back, and breathe. Take one more inhale, and then as you exhale, cartwheel both hands down around the front foot. Let yourself step all the way to plank, and then maybe lower down and take a vinyasa here, or if you want to just go straight to down dog, I encourage that. We're going to do the second side. So inhale, take the left leg into the air. Exhale, step the foot forward between the hands. Now, before coming up, take a moment to step your right foot a little to the right, pivot down onto your back heel so that you can come on up to a warrior one where the hips are squared toward the front of your mat. But then we're going to adjust the feet as we open warrior two. So open it, front heel and back arch line up. Try to drop your right hip down and open, left knee over ankle. Take the arms up and then drop them down, shoulder height. Look over your front fingertips and breathe. So again, this is a pose that's going to deepen as we spend time here. So you may not be at your max, that knee may be barely bent, and your hips may not be perfectly square. But as you hold, maybe you can go just a little further. Back leg strong, press into the outer edge of it. Now turn your front palm up and reverse the warrior. One more inhale. And then cartwheel the hands down around the front foot. Make your way through a vinyasa. Coming all the way back to downward facing dog. Breathe. Inhale, look to the front of the mat. As you exhale, bend the knees and step or hop the feet forward. Inhale for a half lift. Exhale, fold down deep. Let's come back through chair pose. So bend the knees and sink the hips. And we're going to hold here for a moment. We're going to add on a little bit. So we're going to go into some balance. Let's take the arms out at shoulder height. And we're going to wrap the left arm under the right. So see if you can get the upper arms and then the lower arms to wrap. If you can't get the upper arms to wrap and it's just the lower arms, just put your hands on the shoulders. Lift the elbows. Now, we're going to stand on our right foot. Do the best you can here. Pick up the left leg, cross the left thigh, and then tuck the toes behind the calf. Lift the elbows, sink the hips, stay upright, gaze forward at one point to help with your balance. This is eagle pose. We're going to start to add on a little from here. So we're going to fold down Going a little deeper in this pose. So the full pose is really upright, but this is kind of a variation. We're lowering down. Let's go ahead and unwind the arms. See if you can take the fingers to the floor. And if that floor is too far away, you could bend your knees more, or you could just take your fingers to a block. Now let's unwind the left leg and reach it up into the air. Standing splits. We're folding down over the right leg. I'm just going to turn on the mat here. Reach up with the left, fold deep with the torso. If your balance is good here, right hand to right ankle or heel, pull yourself in a little more. Breathe. And then from here, we're going to bend the standing leg, step back long, get your heel down, come on up warrior one, and we're back in basically a dancing warrior sequence if we'd like. So go warrior one, opens to warrior two. Inhale to reverse warrior. And then the last pose of the dancing warrior sequence is extended side. So forearm to thigh, top arm overhead. And I know that right quad is working. I can feel mine at least. So probably you're doing the same. Look under your arm towards your fingers. Breathe, lunge. And then to come on out, reverse, stretch back, and then hands to the floor. Once again, you can take a vinyasa if you'd like to. And breathe. Vinyasa's feeling familiar, hopefully. Inhale, look forward. Exhale, step or hop the feet to the front of your mat. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold down, and then bend the knees. We're going to come to chair. We're going to do the other side. So on the side two, we're going to stand on the left leg, but let's start with the arms. So arms out. This time the right arm will go under the left. Again, if those upper arms don't cross, it's just the lower arms. Just put your hands on your shoulders. Lift the elbows up, and then crossing the right leg over the left. Tuck toes behind calf, sink hips down, lift elbows up. Steady your gaze, so look at something ahead of you that's not moving. Breathe. And then start to fold down. Nice and easy here. So obviously we're moving and we're on one leg. It can be challenging to the balance, of course. We are trying to challenge our balance, but if you fall, it's not the end of the world. Just come back. Unwind the arms. See if you can now bring the fingertips to the floor. And if the floor is too far, it's okay. Use a block or something. Your standing leg can still be bent, but let's reach the right leg now into the air. Standing splits. I'm just going to turn to the other side of my mat. So standing splits, the torso folds to the left leg, the right leg lifts as high as it will go, and if the balance is okay here, see if you can take your left hand off the floor and to your left ankle or heel. And then we're going to bend the front knee, and you're bending the knee so that you can really reach the back foot all the way to the back of the mat, so you can get that really long lunge that we want. Come on up for warrior one. Exhale. Open to warrior two. Inhale, reverse the warrior, and then we're coming to extended side. So forearm to the thigh, top arm moves overhead alongside the ear, creating a diagonal in the body from the foot to the hip to the shoulder to the fingertips. Maybe look up under your arm towards those fingertips. And then inhale, reverse the warrior. And exhale, hands to the floor. Let's make our way back to down dog one more time. And then let's go ahead and take the knees to the floor. We're going to set up for dolphin here, which is a nice inversion practice without requiring that we actually go upside down. It also works the shoulders. We've worked the legs a lot today, and we will stretch out our quads in a minute. But let's go ahead first and just get a little bit of this more. This is a vigorous practice as well. Okay, so your forearms are going to come to the ground, elbows under shoulders. If you need to grab the outer upper arms and really wrap the hands around to kind of get that alignment, take a moment to do that. And then the forearms come out and interlace the fingers. So really, anchoring those hands. Root down through those forearms and then move the legs a little bit back. Tuck your toes, Lift the knees and hips, and it's like a down dog, but we've got forearms on the floor. Less work on the wrists, but probably you'll feel this deeper in your shoulders. The head should be able to hang freely. So if your head is touching the floor, you got a little more work to do, a little more pushing down to keep the head off the ground. Not working with the neck, working with the arms. Maybe walk the feet in a little closer, get your hips higher over your shoulders. Now, option if you'd like, take your right leg up into the air. Reach it for the ceiling. Push the arms down to get that leg higher. And then toes to the floor. Let's, before we collapse, drop, lift the other leg. So left leg up into the air. Keep the hips lifted, keep the arms actively engaged. And then toes to the floor, knees to the floor, hips to the heels. Let yourself come to this nice child's pose. Forehead can come down. Okay, so that was dolphin. Now if you want to take dolphin again, go ahead and do that. But for some of you who might be interested in graduating to headstand, I'm just going to show a little practice that's not actually going to involve going all the way upside down. So you're not going to be balancing on your head today. Of course, if you are practicing and you're comfortable taking a headstand in the center of your room, go for it. I won't hold you back. But for those of you who are like tinkering with the idea of headstand and you want a way to work on it without the fear of falling, this is where we're at. We'll take the arms to the ground in the same exact way we just did for dolphin. So the elbows are under the shoulders, the forearms pressed down, the hands are interlocked, but we can keep the base of the hands a little bit open because we're gonna nestle our head up by the hands. We're gonna actually be on our head, but not the forehead, right? Because if we put our forehead on the ground, what would happen is our neck would really crunch. If we put the top of the head on the ground, the neck gets really elongated and it's a lot of pressure. So what we actually want on the ground is just behind the hairline. So the neck keeps a little bit of its natural curve. So we'll have to kind of try to find that. The arms are going to come on the ground and see if you can put that part of your head on the floor and then the back of your head kind of gets cradled into your hands. Now remember, we're not going to come all the way upside down, but alignment is important and we want to develop that before we're actually testing it. So take that there, back of the head, and then we're going to come the same way. Lift the knees, walk the feet in. Shoulders are over wrists and then hips over. Now, the more you walk your feet in, the more the hips start to move over the shoulders. Now, if your head is on the ground, you're not going to be able to turn your head from side to side to look. So I'm going to try to talk you through this, or you can watch and practice after, up to you. If your head is on the floor and you're rooting down through the forearms, now see if you can just slowly, carefully take the right leg up into the air. Just like we did with the dolphin split, we're reaching the foot to the ceiling, trying to move it up over the hip. So it's almost going to pull that bottom leg up. But before it does, slowly move the leg back to the ground, but don't collapse, don't drop the hips. Keep it strong. The leg should feel like it's extending from the core of the body. Bringing that leg down slow is going to build strength in the center that we ultimately need. Now, without collapsing, see if you can slowly take that left leg up into the air. Get really light on the right toes. They're still on the ground. They're still keeping you balanced, but that left leg is all the way up over your hip and shoulders. Now take it down slowly, 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 slowly. There is weight on your head here, but we're not balancing on it just yet. And then take the knees to the floor. Now go ahead and stack up your fists. Take your forehead to your fists and breathe. So my goal is to help teach you a little bit of something about the pose. Even if you can't quite get there, that is something that you can practice. And being able to practice that, when you decide you actually do want to go upside down, it's going to be stronger. You're going to feel more secure in the practice. So that's my goal. If you have any questions or are uncertain, leave it in the comments. I'm happy to answer questions. It's hard to learn inversions remotely, right? Because there's no one there to watch you or spot you. So I get it. Okay, let's come on up to our knees and we'll do a little back bending here. So we're going to take some Ustrasana camel pose today. So hips are going to be over the knees. Back bending is something that we kind of like to do with every class just because it can be invigorating and it's just another part of the body we want to incorporate. Let's tuck the toes here. The most important thing in back bending is we want to keep the hips over the knees so that we don't accidentally crunch the low back. So I also encourage you to take your hands to that area to remind you not to sink the hip, shoot the hips back, because then as we start to back bend, we're going to crunch that low back. So if we can keep the hips tucked under the body and actually right over the knees, it's going to be a lot safer for our low back as we try to stretch the upper back and get some opening across our chest. So the hands are going to be at the waist, and you're just going to move the heart up and forward. And it's the similar thing of like rooting the hands in to move the heart up and forward. The shoulder blades move deeper into the upper back. The chin can stay in. If it feels okay with the neck, you could take your head back to your shoulder blades. But this is optional. Don't hurt yourself. Some of you might find you're ready, without moving anything else, to drop your hands to your heels. This is an option, but if you can't reach your heels, bring your hands right back to your waist. And then to come up, hands back to the waist, float back up, and then let's just sit back on our heels for a moment, stretching the feet and the toes. We're going to do one more. Yeah? Okay. Come on up. This time, let's extend the feet. So if you didn't reach the heels the first time, nothing really has changed about where your hands are going to be. If you reached the heels the first time, they are further away now. So you may or may not be able to. You can try. But if you can't reach, again, bring your hands back to your waist. It's totally fine to work hands in the waist. What I like about extending the feet is we can root down. We're going to root the hands into the hips here, but we can also think of kind of rooting down through the shins and ankles. So try to think about, they're maybe not going to actually touch the floor. The tops of the feet are on the floor, but the ankles might be up a little. But think about trying to root them down. Keep your hips over your knees, heart up and forward. Maybe head goes back. Reach for your heels. Are they there? Great. If not, bring your hands back to your waist. If your hands can reach your heels, then you can root the fingers down into the heels to drive your shoulders deeper into your upper back. Breathe. Try to soften your glutes. And then when you're ready to come up, support your waist. Come up nice and slow. Let's drop to the left hip. So turn whatever way you like on the mat, and we're going to just do a little twisting. Step the right foot forward, over your left leg, and then make sure you get both hips back on the ground. Right knee is up, let's twist to the right. So you can either use your left arm around the knee or take your left arm past your right knee and turn over the right shoulder. Come on back to center. We're going to do a quick little hip opener here. If anyone has knee trouble, this may be too intense. I will give you a backup variation, but I'm going to show you the full posture first. So you're going to keep your left leg right where it is here on the bottom, but we're going to try to stack this right knee above. So you can take your left hand and try to pull the right foot over to the side so that you're no longer stepping on the foot, but the edges of the feet are on the floor, or even the tops of the feet. The feet are here by the sides of your hips. The knees, ideally, are one over the other. And then we're just going to lean into it. So the hands can come to the floor to support you, and you're just going to start to move yourself forward and fold out over the legs. Now, if this is problematic for your knees, what you're going to do instead is you're going to take that left leg, and I'll just turn to the side here. You're going to step it out quite a distance. Lean back. See if you can pick up the right leg and cross the ankle above the thigh. And then you've got two directions that you can deepen this from. You could start to move your left foot in and bend the knee more, and you can push with your hands to move your chest towards your shin. So that's a backup option if the other one didn't work for you. And I'll show you the same thing on the other side when we get there. For those of you who have the knees stacked, you're really just letting gravity do all the work here, folding down, let the head hang. And then walk the hands in, come on up. Let's switch sides. So we're gonna take the right leg under and we're starting with the twist. Take the left leg over, we're gonna twist to the left. Use your right arm to help you. Turn over your left shoulder, breathe. Twists are really great after back bends. They tend to, bring the spine a little bit back to neutral after we've bent it in one direction a few times. And then coming back to center. And we'll do the same thing with the legs here. So the idea is we've got this right leg on the bottom. We're gonna stack the left knee over the top. So we kind of gotta pull that left foot over and just drop it down. So the feet are pretty passive. The edges of the feet are on the floor. And then we're just gonna fold out over the knees. If you did the modified version the other side, and this actually is still gonna be a pretty good hip opener, you're gonna take your right leg out a little longer and now cross the left ankle above the knee. And then, this might be enough, but see if you can start to slide your right heel in and then put the foot on the ground so that it's rooted down. And then move your chest towards your shin. If you need to go deeper, you can move the foot closer in. And you should feel this in your left hip. Breathing wherever you are. This is relatively passive, so we're not straining. And then slowly come on up. Let's take the legs straight out in front of us. So the last thing we're going to do to complete our practice is just a simple forward fold. So we're going to start it in Dandasana, which is staff pose, which is actually a pretty strong pose, but not real hard, right? So most of us are able to sit. The legs are extended, the quads are engaged, the feet are flexed, so it's not just like a floppy leg position, but we're activating the legs. And then in Dandasana, the torso is a little activated too. The hands press down, the spine aligns, the shoulders are slightly dropped down, and the neck is just really easily in line with the spine. Now to come to Paschimottanasana, which is our seated forward fold, we're going to keep the legs as toned up as they are now, so we're not going to lose this engagement. Inhale, reach the arms out and up, and now we can let go of the effort in the upper body. So we're folding from the tailbone, like from the waist, the hip flex, the hip crease, all the way down. But it might not be far, so if you're here, that's fine. The hands can just be on the floor, the legs are still toned, and you're just leaning in. Some of you might find that you can go deeper and find more of a draping out over the legs. Some of you might find that those feet are really easily accessible, and you can start to maybe pull the pinky toe side of the foot back towards you a little more to continue that sense of flexing in the feet. Find where you need to be and then just breathe, right? So this is also pretty passive. The legs are engaged, but the upper body is trying to let go and just give in here. Let's take 2 more full deep breaths. And then slowly bring yourself back up. Let's cross the legs. So as always, I encourage you to give yourself a chance to take a Shavasana at the end of this practice by coming to the floor and just letting it all go. Take 5 or 10 minutes, up to you, however much time you've got. But for now, let's close with each other. So bring your palms together in front of the heart, close the eyes. Notice your breath again. Notice how things are feeling. And we'll complete the practice with a simple bow forward. The light in me recognizes and honors the light in each of you, wherever you are. Thanks again for practicing from home with me. Namaste.